Today, we're going to talk about a man who literally wrote the rulebook for the world's largest democracy. A man whose journey from the absolute lowest rungs of society to its very highest peak is, well, it's one of the most powerful stories you'll ever hear. We're talking about Dr. B.R. Ambedkar.
Now, you probably know him as the principal architect of India's constitution, but just let that sink in for a second. This was the mind behind the foundational legal document for a brand new nation of hundreds of millions of people. It's a monumental achievement by any standard you can think of.
But here's the thing. To really understand the sheer weight of that accomplishment, you have to go back to the beginning. Because his journey from the very, very bottom to that absolute peak is what makes this story so incredible. So let's start right there.
To get a handle on Dr. Ambedkar's life, we first have to understand the world he was born into, a world that was designed to crush him before he even had a chance, a world governed by the rigid, deeply oppressive structure of the caste system.
So he was born on April 14, 1891. He was the 14th child in a Mahar family. Now, his father and his grandfather had actually served in the British Indian Army, which gave them a little bit of an opportunity. But the moment they were outside that uniform, their caste identity defined and, frankly, brutally limited every single part of their lives.
And if you want to understand just how bad it was, you have to look at the rules his community was forced to live under. I mean, this wasn't just about your social status. This was a system of deliberate, calculated dehumanization, and it was symbolized by two very specific objects.
The level of detail in these rules is just horrifying. A pot was tied around their necks so their spit wouldn't touch and pollute the earth. A broom was literally tied to their waists to sweep away the so-called impurity of their own footprints as they walked. Even their shadow was considered a contaminant. Just imagine for a second being born into a world that tells you your very presence, your shadow, is pollution.
So how do you fight a system that's designed to erase your very humanity? Well, for Ambedkar, the answer was knowledge. He chose education as his weapon, and he then embarked on one of the most incredible academic journeys of the entire 20th century.
Just look at this timeline. It's unbelievable. He gets his bachelor's in India by 1912. Okay, just 3 years later, he has a master's degree from America, and he's already working on another one in London. By 1917, a PhD from Columbia University. And then, just to top it all off, a Doctor of Science from London in 1923. The pace and the global scope of his education, it's just staggering.
And we're not talking about some narrow, specialized study here. His master's degree alone covered economics, political science, sociology, philosophy, and anthropology. He wasn't just collecting degrees for the sake of it. He was building an intellectual arsenal. He was mastering the very subjects that explain how societies and power structures actually work.
And this right here, this really shows you his strategic mind. For his PhD thesis, he didn't pick some abstract, obscure topic. No, he analyzed how money flowed through British India. He was using the colonizers' own economic theories to dismantle the very system that was oppressing his people.
But you know, all this incredible knowledge was never just for him. It wasn't about personal achievement. It was fuel for a revolution. He came back to India and immediately poured all of that learning into a direct fight for social and political rights.
So, in July of 1924, he founded this key organization, the Bahishkrit Hitkarini Sabha. The name basically translates to the Outcasts Welfare Association, and its mission couldn't have been clearer: to wage a direct war against the practice of untouchability.
And he was just so strategic about it. First, back in 1920, he launches a newspaper called Mook Nayak, which means Leader of the Silent, to finally give his community a voice. Then, he builds the organization to mobilize people. And then, through that same organization, he publishes another paper, Bahishkrit Bharat, or Excluded India, to amplify that message even further.
And all this effort, the education, the writing, the organizing, it wasn't just making noise. It was creating real, tangible political pressure. And in 1923, all that pressure led to a massive breakthrough.
This is where you see all that work pay off. Thanks to the pressure from Ambedkar's growing movement, the Bombay Legislative Council passed a resolution. And for the very first time, the law actually stated that public places, we're talking wells, roads, schools, had to be open to everyone, including the so-called untouchables. This was the first major crack in that giant wall of oppression.
So when you put it all together, the arc of his life is just breathtaking. You have a boy who was told his own shadow was a pollutant, a boy who had to have a broom tied to his back to literally erase his own presence.
And that story ends with that very same man sitting at a table, pen in hand, writing the fundamental laws of equality, liberty, and justice for a new nation of hundreds of millions of people.
It really leaves us with this powerful idea to think about, doesn't it? The life of Dr. Ambedkar is just proof. It's a testament to how one person, armed with knowledge and an absolutely unbreakable will to fight injustice, can truly, genuinely rewrite the future of an entire nation.